Is it not going? Yeah, but I've still got my red lights.
No, that's
Okay. Is that right? Okay. Is there any people here wishing to talk on public forum at this stage? Any of our guests? Harvey? Okay, the floor is yours. Sorry. They will come into effect in the years 11 and 12 of the 10-year plan. Now, this flood is not going to wait for 11 or 12 years. It could happen tomorrow. And I don't want to see our community, our residents association, or this council, this community board with egg on their face when the locals are going to say, why didn't you do something when you had the chance? So I won't take up any more of your time, but there was a submission to the long-term plan. Obviously, it didn't get any traction. So that's why I'm here, and we're going to take it further at our next Residents Association meeting, and we will come to the next community board meeting with a list of questions that we would like answers to. Thank you. Well, thank you, Harvey. Wait a minute, Harvey, we may have a question. Oh, yeah, of course, I beg your pardon. It's all right, Jack. No, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. Graham, John.
Thank you. Just like to say that I attend the Community Association meetings, and after the last meeting where it was raised, I communicated with the Chief Executive, and in fairness, a response was received, but it was a basic response, and I accept that. What I am a little bit disappointed about is that I asked whether or not a more formal reporting, and without preempting the colleagues that are here, there may well be someone here that's going to present some further information. However, I would like it noted, Mr. Chair, that as the next meeting is up in Graham's area at Springfield, that if the Chief Executive Officer could kindly arrange for someone with the required expertise to be there to speak at the community. And yesterday at a meeting, I ran into one of the Environment Canterbury councillors, and I raised the issue with him. So I will follow that up and get back to you, Graham.
That'd be excellent.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else want to make a comment? Steve?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Graham. Look, I think what we can do is commit to when we attend your lovely part of the world that we'll make sure that we've got the right officer there to talk to that, and maybe if we can get those questions earlier, then we can come a bit.
That's why we meet first Tuesday. From our meeting, we'll certainly send the questions through, and we'll have spades available if you're really energetic. Thank you. Thank you, Graham. Just switch your. Yeah, Steve, my intention is now to carry on with the meeting and have the council people finished. I want to get through our meeting. So you're happy with that? We'll do everything. Do you want? Shall we do Council Hill first, or what? We'll leave that until later, John. Hey? Yeah, we'll go through our meeting. Right. If you're happy with that, Steve.
So just on that for general business, sir, I've sort of got the topics of delegations, the community board brochure. Thank you.
Sorry, John, just before we go follow through the agenda, I didn't have any apologies because we're all here, but no doubt our chief executive has sent an apology, which she told me personally she would like to be apologised because she's got other commitments at this stage. Any further apologies? If somebody move, I'll move that the apology be accepted also. Thank you, been seconded. Carried. Now we move on to the notification of general business, which is what you're doing, John. Thank you.
So do you want me to hold those discussions until the end on the delegations and the community board brochure?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. If you're happy with that, or not, unless you want to give us a brief and then we can discuss it at a later stage or not. Do you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, we've got the team here to provide a couple of really quick presentations. I think they
Right.
can be in and out fairly rapidly. And then if you want more of a discussion to occur around the items to be tabled by the members, that might be, if we can stick to that order, then we've got more time for that conversation. Just I'm mindful of your time to finish as well.
Yeah, I'm reluctant on that as well. I'm very mindful of what you're saying, Steve. But in discussion with my fellow members, we got some very important matters to bring up. That's what it amounts to. When I spoke to the chief executive about this, she was reasonably happy. But if this instance, if you've got two presentations that are short, we still are really in public time anyway. So I'm quite happy to allow that. Your first person would be?
Right, Ben, and if you want to come up and just keep it really tight. Thank you.
Okay, Ben, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
your attendance again at this stage.
Oh, it's great. Love coming out here. I was just going to cover off some of the climate change engagement work that was undertaken earlier this year. I've got some physical copies if people would like that as well. We can pass it around if you want. As part of during the LTP process, part of that was we wanted to ask the community about what they thought or the desired pace and scale of intervention on climate adaptation was. So we asked them what they think the council should be doing and how they're willing, and our willingness to act on that as well. And the goal was that we asked enough people and enough range of people that it was a significantly robust set of data that we could rely on. So this work will help inform some of the ongoing work that council's doing. We're looking at our emissions reduction plan, an adaptation plan, and sustainability plan, and we're just getting those people in place at present. So just a couple of key points out of the report is that climate change is a real and present threat for much of the community, and frames some of their thinking and their immediacy, with which they action is required from council. And people think there is an opportunity for council to demonstrate its commitment to this, but they're also worried about some of the financial implications for that and how that cost is shared across different communities and or as a whole. So there was a few elements in the report that they talked about different ways to approach that. So that the kind of thinking and the how willing people are to engage with this will be what we use to develop those plans into the future. So I'm happy to just take questions on that.
Any questions on that, John?
Yes, given the fact that there's the council and there's the community board, are you able to tell us what the specific effects of climate change that the council is working through is relevant specifically to the community board, the Malvern Community Board, please, Ben?
Yes, so at the moment we don't have climate change or sustainability staff members on board at the moment, and their first task will be to develop a emissions plan and a sustainability plan. They are still to be drafted. The report here is around what the community feels is happening and how willing they are to engage on this and the scope of works they're willing to sort of see happen and how that may or may not be funded. So this kind of helps shape up what that plan should tackle and how it should tackle it. But we haven't drafted up the plan for that yet.
Thank you. So, given I've seen a previous research first report, have they identified or no, withdraw that. What involvement is the board going to have when the new staff in the climate change division are appointed to work with the climate change staff in interpreting and applying the climate survey in the Malvern ward?
Yeah, so we're not going to be applying the survey. I think this just gives us the framework to see what the community as a whole is willing to sort of be, or will be happy to see in a plan or not. But once those plans are drafted, I think they can be shared back here to be discussed. But those staff are not in council, so and those plans are not ready to be shared. So yeah, that's where we're at.
I think just to follow on from my deputy, I just wonder if we've got no participation in the initial, where do you expect us to come in? I mean, once you have developed the plan, are we still going to have any say after that? Or is it going to be a staff recommendation, which seems to follow on that we don't really have any say in any of the staff's recommendation? Should we not be in it right at the start?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of things that we kind of have to do as well in a national legislation context that we need to understand as well. And as they get drafted, I'm sure we could think of an opportunity to bring that, or at least to show up here and ask those key issues that you're facing in this area to make sure that those ideas are considered in the development of those plans. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Sean was before me. Sean.
Sorry, Sean.
I'm sort of at page 10 and I see your representative sample. I'm slightly concerned that of the 550, and I understand that only 150 of those were taken in the sample, that only 13 rural residents were surveyed across Malvern and Ellesmere. If we were going to half that, that would be less than the number of communities in Malvern. So I am concerned that Malvern ward has not been treated with the same respect as maybe Rolleston has, and I see here there's a lot of reference to these rural participants being from outside of Rolleston, which means the majority of the data that was collected was from Rolleston residents. And as we know, that's such a small area of Malvern. If we're talking climate change, surely area has got something to do with it and not just number of residents or population.
Yeah, the report was trying to understand the community's perception, not in terms of trying to understand the actual impacts of climate change that the district is facing. So the sample was really around making sure that it was 100 people that represented the Selwyn as a whole and their views, not saying what are the issues that Malvern area is facing, but what are the perceptions of the issues or how they see climate change in Selwyn as a whole. So that's why that's what research first did, and it's how they figured out the percentages to answer, because that gives them that robust.
The similar thing was done with the long-term plan, and my concern is that the rural communities and the alpine communities actually weren't represented very well. So I feel that the same may be the case in this report. That's just what I have to say about that. Thank you.
It can be hard also to try and make sure that to balance the cost of running surveys and getting the amount of people involved in a survey versus getting the outcome. So that's always a challenge we face.
Thank you. Calvin.
Yeah, my question's on the similar lines, but yeah, I'm really concerned about this because Malvern ward is 77% of Selwyn District Council area. That means it takes 77% of the climate change impacts, of which you've heard from Graham here today. It's current, it's now. So surely I would have thought we should have, I know you've explained it, Ben, thank you, but we should have got some, got the feelings and the thoughts from the people of 77% of Selwyn District into something as important as climate change, which it is. So that's my comment really, but yeah, and my question similar to Sean's. We really need to make sure we get the feelings of Malvern District, sorry, Malvern Ward, and Bruce is quite right, and John asking that where do we get involved in this, because it's going to be key for the future of Malvern Ward, however large or small it is, to make sure that we protect our citizens, adapt to the climate change, and we need to be involved in funding some of those projects and decisions and helping and supporting along with council. So I think it's critical, and I think it's something we really need to do.
I actually think that's more important than
Sean,
shifting the perceptions
Sean,
of those who have less
excuse
conviction.
me, Sean, Kelvin was still speaking, and I'll, when he turns his light off, I will invite you.
I finished.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I think that's more important than shifting the perception of those who have less conviction, is including the ones that make up the most of the district.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think the staff have heard the feedback from the board, and certainly from a perceptions point of view, we're not dealing with the actions directly, but certainly once we start developing those plans, then I think we would be bringing those early plans and discussions back to the community board for awareness and input. Ben, have you got a rough time frame on when that might occur?
No, so we're just interviewing people for that role now, and their key next steps will be to get those drafts underway. So I think probably later this year would be appropriate for someone to sort of come and hear about some of those key issues that are facing the area out here. And again, yeah, those how people see the funding of these things and the impacts of that will help figure out the best way we can get those things through those plans. Yeah.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'd like to have the record to note that, similar to my colleagues, I'm concerned about the methodology of the report, and without getting too technical, when the sample sizes are small, my understanding is that the margin of error is large, and I understand the council's desire to be cost effective. However, I just wonder whether paying for a 39-page report where the methodology may be flawed is actually value for money, because at the end of the day, as we've seen in previous reports, that the initial sampling, I believe, is highly influential in council officers taking that information and running. Thank you.
Would you ask?
Yeah, I think that's
Comment?
why we engage with researchers. They've got processes in place to make sure that they get a range of people from a range of places, a range of ages. There's they use telephone calls as well to try and make sure they capture any and everyone in there, to make sure that there's enough people from all those areas to be able to start to make some of the generalizations in the report. And again, this is just to try and understand how people feel about it and what they'd be willing to look into in terms of costs and sharing those costs and how they think it's impacting them now, rather than saying this is the projects we are doing and not doing. And the only way to get the only way to do it would be through a census, which I think would, yeah, that's the only option really to get a full cost of things.
Are there any further comments? I think that, Ben, you've taken it on board that it's not only staff recommendations, it's got to be people on the outside as well. So I think as long as you've taken that on board, we keep us informed. We'll be here to help you.
Yeah, thank you.
Somebody prepared at this stage to move and second Ben's report. John's moved, seconder. Kelvin seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you.
You can tell them how quick you want it to be.
The board, the situation is now, the next one on the agenda is Castle Hill. I feel it's very important, no matter whether you want to do it now, and Mike, just a minute, Derek, whether we want to do it now or leave it till later. I'd like some guidance because I know we've got a pretty full agenda. This report here, I must congratulate Derek on that for it, but it's what time presentation will you need, Derek? I mean, do you want to go through the whole report or just give a summation of it, and then we can ask you some questions? Happy with that? The board happy with that? Right. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, for those that don't know me, my name's Derek Hayes. I've worked with the council for a number of years in the Parks and Reserve space, and I've met some of you through that role. So thank you. The purpose of the report was to present the Castle Hill Village Reserves Management Plan to the board and to seek the board's recommendation via resolution that it can now be adopted by council. To hopefully assure you that the process involved in the review was a robust one, and that the final plan takes into consideration the collective views of the community and it's fit for purpose. Original reserve management plan was prepared in 2011 for the village. They're a statutory requirement under the Reserves Act, and they're required to be kept up to date. With recent growth in the village, it's doubled in size, and a number of legislative changes like the regional pest management plan meant that we needed to do a review of the 2011 plan, which is the one before you. So yeah, the process to review the plan has been comprehensive. It included a number of community surveys at the village, drop-in sessions, and it ended in a formal submission process and a hearing process, which Councillor Mugford was involved on the hearings panel. So attached to the report is a copy of the final reserve management plan. It shows the track changes, a track change version, which is a number of the amendments that were made as a result of the submission and hearings process. And I think attachment 2 to that report also includes sort of a summary of the key themes that were raised by submitters and then how they've been responded to in the final plan. I could probably hand it over to questions at this point, unless there's any further detail on the plan itself that people want me to share.
Questions? Calvin?
Yeah, thank you, Derek, for bringing this forward again. I can say that we have, as a board, been to Castle Hill. That's definitely, or in the early days, excluding, sorry, John and Phil. So we have been to Castle Hill. This document was put forward in the original form, or the form at that time, in 2023 to us. We did review it, and we did, like I say, go out and visit Castle Hill. So we have a good understanding of it. We understand that Councillor Mugford has been involved with it all the way along, which is good. So I'm personally quite content that the community have had their say and that the staff, and it seems to have been a very good process and there's been well managed. So I'm quite content with the document as presented, and that it's looking good for us. I haven't really got a question. It was just a comment that that's how I personally feel about it at the moment. So thank you.
Yeah, I would be of the same ilk, Derek. I think the thing is that once the committee was basically abolished as far as a committee of council, the concern was at that stage who was going to take notice of them. And I think reading through your report, I feel that again I agree with Calvin, the fact that the community has been involved all the way through. They've given you ideas. Some of them have been accepted, and then the ones that haven't been, you've at least given them the reasons. And I say I do compliment you on the report. There's no question about that. But as long as it's and which you've proven at this stage that obviously the community itself is more than happy, and they've given the thing. The only thing is that as long as it carries on, like the number of trees that you're going to plant, the specimens of trees that you're deciding to plant, again, as long as the community is involved for the whole thing. As far as I'm concerned personally, I think you've done a good job. That's my comment at this stage. Oh,
Yeah, just having been on the panel, it's been a really good process right through. As I say, it's very thorough. We listened to the people that came in and spoke to us, who were basically all of the same consent. So that made it a lot easier. But I'd really like to thank Derek for all the time that he has put into this, because it's been huge, and I think it's been extremely well done.
John.
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge what the previous members have said. And whilst the chair thinks you've done a good job, I'd just like to say I know you've done a good job.
Well, that is. Board, is there any other questions you want to ask at this stage?
I don't have any questions.
Sian?
But I just wanted to make a statement that I think this has been well thought out, and I have had conversations with the rest of the board and Bob and Phil, who I know Phil's been closely involved with the community, and I just want to say thank you for representing the voice of the community in your documentation, and I really hope that the council and the rest of the stakeholders can enable the community to be able to function in the way that they wish to. Thank you.
Thank you, Sian. Phil, I haven't asked you for a comment, but I know you had a lot to do with this. Your comment, perhaps, at this stage? If there's, if we go to the recommendation of the report,
Page 6.
which is page 6 on your agenda. The recommendation is that the Malvern Community Board, under the delegated authority approved in the terms of the Local Government Act 2002, Section 53, recommends to Council that the Castle Hill Village Reserve Management Plan be adopted. Is somebody prepared to move that? Thank you, John. The seconder, Phil. It's open for discussion. If there's none, I will put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Derek. At the start of the meeting, I should have asked, are there any conflicts of interest? If there's none, we shall carry on. That attachment, we've done that. Yep.
Done public forum.
Some public forum. Confirmation of minutes. If you turn to page 101. The minutes are before us. I trust you have had a look at them. Is somebody prepared to be moved that I sign them as a true and accurate record of our last meeting? I have one from here. Yeah, there was one aspect which I see we haven't had comment on, and that was the in the public forum where Chris Stewart, chair of the Arthur's Pass Association, asked, the first issue was the recent reallocation of power poles on a property along State Highway 1, which is different to what the policy was originally. He just wanted to know whether or not that was accepted now by council, that the poles will then be moved closer to the roadside, which was what was proposed originally, and then it was altered that the poles be set back from the roadside, so that people, when they're driving, didn't get the first glimpse of the mountains covered by power poles. And then a particular farmer up there wished to put in a travelling irrigator and asked that on his property, the poles would be then recommended to be on the roadside. The question asked, and to my knowledge, we haven't got a reply, was, is this now the custom or the practice that the council is going to apply for that section of State Highway 73? So that was in the minutes, and to my knowledge, as part of it, we were going to get some response for this meeting. To my knowledge, it hasn't been obtained. So that would not be correct as the way the minutes are doing it at this stage. Has anybody else got a comment on that?
I would agree, Mr. Chair, and also in relation to number 5, if I may, the chief executive said that the engagement process in relation to the community halls is expected to start in September, October of this year. My personal view is that when the board asks a question, a very brief asked, and then the matter's closed off and we have to keep re-asking. Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Member Very. I think that's a reasonable point. I think we can certainly look to make a note of both the points that the Chair has raised and Mr. Very in the action report, and we'll commit to bringing a response back to the next meeting.
Calvin?
Could I make a suggestion on that point that I'm concerned about the action list as well, because if they just seem to disappear off very quickly and nothing gets added. So maybe we should consider keeping everybody who presents in public forums should be then listed as an item in the actions for the next meeting, so that we can say if there was no action, that's fine, you just put no action. But then we put actions against it, and every point on the minutes should then have an action as well. So if there's no action for it, it's fine, no action closed. And then every point is then monitored and tracked, because it'd be really useful. I'm having trouble following my own minutes, which is not a very good thing. So I think that would be a good suggestion I could highlight and reinforce what both John and Bruce have said. Thank you.
Okay, so subject to those matters that have already been discussed and the minutes being accorded, are you happy that the rest of the minutes we pass them as a true and accurate record?
Also move.
Thank you, John. A seconder? Calvin? It's been moved and seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Thank you. Done that. If you look at the actions now, then on page 106, you will see there, Sean, the memorial gates. Would you like to make a comment on that, please?
Yep, so I have contacted the owner of the property where the gates supposedly are. I'm still waiting to hear a reply.
In regards to the second one, I know that has occurred and it's already in the CEO's report. The fact that he has not only met with her, but he also other staff responsible for that. So that's okay. The board financial, at this stage, do you want to bring it up under finance, Calvin, or just say that we're still sort of waiting?
I can bring it. I've got a section in my report when I was just going to bring it up. Yeah, that's fine.
Would you like to leave it until that stage?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. In the finance team, we've got a member of the finance team here. Again, can I take the liberty of perhaps inviting you to talk on the finance itself once Calvin has presented it? Would you be happy with that? No, look, I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's through you, Mr. Chair.
Calvin, Stephen.
Thank you.
Steve.
You'll get there. Look, we've certainly taken on board and reading the reports from the board members and having a discussion today. I think certainly the September report will come back with a full breakdown as you've requested. So we can note that that will be an update to the action for the 11th or for the September meeting.
Thank you. Move on now to item 6, which is correspondence. The Darfield Residents Association on page 107. Somebody like to speak to that? John? It was the motion that was passed there was then passed to us, whether we would support the particular motion that they had put forward.
I would move that the board support the motion, sir.
Is there a seconder? Calvin, it's open for discussion.
So,
do you want to just read what we've got? Would you like to just read what we've got so that the public can be aware of what the motion is about?
right, the motion is Darfield residents express their alarm at the unsustainable rate increase proposed in the Selwyn District Council LTP and request council to initiate a complete review of proposed costs, expenditure, timing of projects and asset sales with a view to limiting future increases to affordable levels. I think, with due respect to Harvey, and I'm speaking on my behalf, not his, that sometimes the horse is bolted, but I think the message is loud and clear that when I've been out in the community engaging with constituents, they're concerned about the rate rise, and they're also concerned about the way the information in the long-term plan was presented, in the fact that it was probably from last week at the conference, in the Prime Minister's view, an overemphasis on the nice to have rather than the basics. And I think that from my point of view, one approach that I've seen other councils use successfully, not that I'm interfering operationally, is that they've said for a rate rise of 10%, you're likely to get this. For a rate rise of 15%, you can get this. And I think that makes it more user-friendly, because the people that I've spoken to, and I must admit myself, which may be due to my advanced years, had difficulty trying to comprehend the glossy material in the long-term plan. It was fantastically presented, a real public relations, coup, but it didn't have very many facts. We had the big choices, the big decisions, but then there was a multitude of other documents that were in various places rather than a succinct summary and then a pointing to, if you now want further information, go here. And maybe my colleague, Mr. Freeman, would like to make a comment on that.
Phil, would you accept the challenge?
Thank you for throwing me on the bus, John. Yes, it was quite a frustrating long-term plan to work through, and the information wasn't easy to find. I do find that most of the people had no idea where the money was being spent, and you had to dig hard to find it. We found missing money that had been budgeted through the council and then had been pulled out without any consultation or knowledge of half-finished projects. So there's been a general consensus that it wasn't a well put together thing, but there's not much you can do once it's actually done. So, and that was the time thing. So that's why the consensus out there was to, and we were quite vocal in to relook at things, and it just basically got brushed aside. So that's pretty much what.
Well, perhaps in some ways, board, we've strayed off the original motion or that we were asking to be supporting, but I do take the comments and I think they are relevant. Is there any further discussion? Sian?
I've had quite a bit of feedback from people within the Darfield community, people who are thinking about whether they are going to be able to afford to remain in the area. These are homeowners, also people who rent there, due to all of the things that are in the commentary around increases, including insurance. The rental prices are getting to a point where people are no longer being able to afford to rent in the area, where once upon a time there was an attraction to coming out here because the rent prices were quite low. So I think one of the risks that are being run here is that normal everyday New Zealanders will not be able to work and play within this district if the rate increase gets to a point where people are no longer able to afford to live here.
Calvin?
Yeah, it's not really no, it is, it's directly connected to this motion, but it's not on, we've drifted a bit here, but just want to give an example. It's in the press, so everybody can read it. It's in the public domain. The cycle route from sea to mountains. That's quoted as being, I believe, 20 million, something like that in the long-term plan. Out there is a bells and whistles version. I don't know how you put a bicycle bell on the cycle route. I don't know. Is 47 million. So the community out there are really concerned. I've spoken to loads of people, they're speaking to me actually, and asking me, is it 20 million? Is it 47 million? And at this time of a cost of living crisis, should we be concentrating on infrastructure more than something like a cycleway that maybe we should be looking and putting that at years 11 and 12 rather than thinking about Springfield. Let's think about Springfield flood prevention and protection rather than something like that. So this is on the same vein. It's about the community having information so they clearly see when these projects are timed for, when they're going to happen, and when they can actually see their rates coming down to I did say coming down there, didn't I? Being at a reasonable level for the services they're being provided for in their communities. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I've allowed the discussion to get way off track, but I think it's, it is relevant. It is relevant. I think, as was mentioned at our board and our Prime Minister said, it's time. The building that we were in at Wellington cost $140 million to build. And that was some years ago, which you and I paid for. And what he is saying, that whatever councils want, don't come to the public purse. If your people want that particular thing, they will support it. If they don't, they won't support it. Please listen to your ratepayers. And I think it's all relevant to the discussion that we've had on this particular proposal. I will now put the motion. Do you want to have your final say? Right, John.
Yeah. I would like to say that looking at the motion and taking a practical and realistic approach, that the key words are to limit rate rises with a view to limiting future increases to acceptable, affordable levels, because I don't think it was the intention, and I'm speaking for someone else, but I don't think that the Darfield Residents Association would have wanted the council to undertake a massive, costly review. That the main point, as I read it, is that they are aware that try and limit future increases to affordable levels, if that helps. And in that case, there I support the motion.
Thank you. So I will now put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. The Darfield, if you go down to page 106. 108. Just do. I am on page 108 actually, but I only saw it was 116. Thank you, Steve. Now, as you know, it has been the custom of the Malvern Community Board to support the prize giving at Darfield High School. We didn't do so last year because of the problems that we had within the board, and so we missed out. I've spoken to the principal there, and he would like us to give something towards. He didn't say a figure. It's really up to us as a board, and we could isolate it to a special prize, or we could just give it to the general prize fund, of which they then would allocate. Now, I will have to be guided, and Councillor Mugford, you may be able to tell us in past what has been the donation. Five hundred, I think.
Because we've also got
Nothing to do with us.
but we've always set the figure.
Yes, correct. As I understand from the background I have given or have had, it was $500. And we could either do that to a special prize or else we could give it to the Darfield High School and they would allocate that prize. Yeah, so that's what the system is. So could we have a figure and could we then at this stage give them the authority to allocate the money to whether they think it's going to be best used? John?
Yeah, I would say that if we've got the, within our budget, $500 to be allocated to the school to be used at the principal's discretion.
A seconder? Calvin? Oh, Frank, Phil? You seconded that, thank you. Any discussion on it? Calvin?
Yeah, I'm just concerned where the 500 comes from. If I can find it in the budget, surely, yes. But it sounds to me like it should be more like a discretionary fund type function. So maybe we should talk to council about it coming out of the overall discretionary fund that now exists, or I'll take Councillor Mugford's advice on that. But it's just where that 500 comes from. I'll be able to find it if you give me the challenge. But I think we should make sure that our community are paying for things in our community, which is correct in this case, obviously. But just if there is some other avenue, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Steve?
Yes, look, I think if we can take the general principle of a degree of interest in supporting this again, and maybe we can bring that back to the September meeting with confirmation about where that budget comes from, and then the board can make the final determination at that point. Are you happy to move on that direction?
I'm more than happy with that. So we'll pass the motion at this stage that we will support the prize giving. That's the first motion I'll put. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Against? Carried. Now, the other part of that letter is they've offered us an opportunity to present that or else and reserve a seat accordingly. I definitely believe that the community board should be represented. There's no question about that. I'm happy to represent them if you so desire. If somebody else wants to do it or come along with me, I'm more than happy to take somebody. Sian?
Mr. Chair, I'll be in attendance as I have children that will be involved in the senior prize giving, so I'm happy to be there representing the community board.
So you would come along with me? Okay, that's all right. Does anybody else want to come? I mean, that's the point. Okay, so is the board happy that by myself and Sian represent the community board?
Yep.
We don't need to have a motion, just as long as everybody's in agreement with that. Okay, thank you. We now move on to reports. Could I say at this stage, I was going to write something, but then I didn't think I knew how to do it, and that was the word passion. And I said to my deputy chair, perhaps you might write something, because I said you probably have to present it anyway, because I get too emotional. But the thing that I got the most out of this conference was the passion that was expressed not only by the speakers, but also the councillors and the community board members. As I say, of the 499 people that we probably spoke to out of 500, the passion that councillors have for community boards. And yet for some reason in the Selwyn area here, we don't seem to have that passion. And it just seems something to me that why haven't we? Why haven't we got that? I didn't find a councillor up there of any other the people that I spoke to didn't support community boards. And I said, well, you know, are you supporting them? Is your staff supporting them? Or are you being told? And they said, no. We do get a lot of support from the staff. The staff have a lot of input, but they said it is our decisions. And so I just wonder why here we are facing such a traumatic thing. And we've done it ever since we've had community boards in the Selwyn district. And perhaps John will talk further in his report for the amount of meetings that we've been invited to talk to about community boards. And I'm sure John will elaborate more on that. In areas where they've got active councillors, in areas where they've had community board, but for some reason or other, it hasn't been supported. In areas where they are making inquiries, how best can we represent our ratepayers? So getting back to the conference, it gave me a particular reason for the next 12 months that we try and get our community a voice of what they actually want. If other councils can do it, why can't ours? There's always two options. There's the option that what they want, there's the option that we want. It's time we stood up and looked after our community, perhaps better than what it is being looked after at the present time.
And Mr. I'd just like to reiterate what the chair has said. And as you all know, I joined the board late, and unfortunately Bruce was greedy because he took all the passion, so that left no passion for me. But as you've seen today, that Bruce really does come at the task of representing the community in Malvern, and especially in West Melton. And that's one of the advantages of the community board, is that unlike someone else sitting at this table, when I make decisions, I don't have to consider the people in Rolleston and otherwise. I'm really just focused quite parochially on what's best for the Malvern district. And I would like to say that being at the conference, if Bruce hadn't taken all the passion out of the pie, I might have felt some passion too.
Thank you. I will move my report. Mr. Secretary, Kelvin, thank you. It's open for discussion. If there's no discussion, I will move my report. All in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. The next one is page 111. Sian, is there anything you wish to add to it?
I haven't been to many meetings, but I have been quite involved in community events, especially with the children's sport. So, but yeah, I've just moved house. Everything's all settled now, so we can kick back in. I made my report.
Second for Kel. Thank you, Phil. All in favour?
Aye.
Please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Kelvin.
Okay, I'll move my report as read.
Seconder. Thank you, Sian.
Thank you. So now I'll just go through it very quickly. It's been a busy month, and I appreciate Sian's support and help she's been doing. During the last month, she hasn't got a nice list of meetings like I have, but we have been working together as a board, and we've been getting some really good stuff done. So I'm not going to. I will pick one of those meetings. 17th of August 24, Hororata Hall, celebration of ownership to the community. So the ownership of Hororata Hall has been returned to the community, which is awesome. I went up and got a free pie from them, which was even more awesome. But the people there are just an awesome group of people. They've got their hall back, they've got some land around it, and they've got some funds from council to run it, which is awesome. the lady told me who does the organising, she said her phone hasn't stopped ringing since she took ownership of the hall. People just want to book it like crazy. So it's going to get better utilised as well. So that's awesome. And on that subject, we went up to the conference, myself, Bruce and John, and I managed to get Horata Hall. They did a big mural, which Steve has seen. And I managed to get Horata Hall put on there as a successful community project. So I've got photographs to prove it. So if anybody wants to see them, I will send a copy through to the community. But it's just awesome that the community, we've got them right up at the highest level, but it's a really good example of a really good project and an awesome community. We've got lots of awesome communities, 16 of them actually, in Malvern, and that's what we need to be supporting. Right. So what's going next? Yes, conference. So conference was a really positive experience for me. The support from the other community boards, from the councillors, from most of the mayors, let's not mention any names, and even the MPs that were there. I had to chat with a few. Just awesome support. It was about localism, which is about community boards and communities. I'm going to do a Bruce now. We had a presentation from the Fakari White Island incident, which was very moving, and I appreciate them having the courage to stand up. It was one of the mayors and one of the locals whose brother is still on the island. And it was, sorry, I practiced this on you earlier. So we had the two people present. They both came across, this was the first time they'd spoken in public since the event, as in public, but it was bringing the learnings and the things they got out of the event that they could positively make us more resilient for the future. Some great ideas there, some great things there, really awesome people. But just, it all came down to local, and it was about the local knowledge. Whoever was involved in any incident, when we do have a big earthquake or whatever, they should go back to that local knowledge. The people who are in the place, which is the people that are in the place are the locals, the community that are there. Plus, if you're really lucky, you'll have a community board in the future member there as well. So that you can actually got some conduits to use. And that knowledge is fundamental to the best result we can get out of a terrible situation like that. So that was the thing that stood out from that conference for me personally, together with the support of all the other community boards. Some have been established recently, these new community boards, which is awesome. Some of the councils are trying to disestablish them. I won't mention any names because we know where they are. Here, there, and a couple of others, about a handful. Some are actually, the ones that are being established, really interesting. One guy spoke to me and he said, at the last representation review 3 years ago, their council was going to disestablish the community board. So he put in a suggestion that they should keep that community board, but they should put one in one of the other wards. He is now chair of that new ward. And they won an award. They won an award at the conference. So in only 21 months, he's won an award with a new community board that he made exist from putting in on a consultation that the council had sent out. So this was that community board council were told by the commissioner from the local government commission that they should produce a new community board in that area. So that opportunity with a consultation is there. The commissioners are listening. So it's about our public responding to consultations that are out there. Others, it was really interesting to find out how they were financed, what delegations they'd got. what agreements they've got in places with their councils, and also that they were totally and utterly allowed to produce their own agendas. Really interesting stuff. I won't go into those two, so let's just drop up quickly onto finance. So I've produced a financial report, which I'm looking around the table. Charlotte's probably the only one that actually hasn't got it, and maybe Felix over there. And members of the public. So, yeah, so members of the public, this is public information. We, on our board, sorry, on our board agenda every month, we have financial reports. We're funded from a targeted rate, and then the GST is removed from that. The council then takes a support charge. We take our remuneration, and then we're left with an amount of operating funds. So with what's there in front of you is the 22-23. I've just left it at headline figures. We have a surplus setting in our an account somewhere, hopefully, Steve, which was at the end of 23 financial year 99,294. I'm not aware of everything to do with that year because we're only in place for part of it. But then when we move on to 23-24, we can see that the figures, including the costs of the by-election, are all in there, and that figure of surplus has moved from 99 down to 92. So we overspent slightly, but obviously the election was just over 10,000. So that's actually, I think we've done a really good job there. But there is some remuneration that maybe you are able to answer or not now. The remuneration budget and actual should be almost exactly the same because it's a recognised pot from the remuneration committee. So there's still a 3,619 that hasn't been apportioned. It may have been some complication with the by-election, etc., when we only had 3 members, but I think we just need to establish what the true situation and the end result is, because that would affect the next figures. We then move on to 24-25 budget, which the community board itself were involved in, and we went through it with council and we agreed it so that it wouldn't end up big negative or big positive. And that adds up at the moment to 89,981. So we've come down by 3,000. So that seems reasonable enough, although the 3,600 might add to that, which becomes 6,000 negative. Or 6,000 off the surplus. But what I have a real concern with is that the targeted rate at the beginning of the year was 198,232, which, and I'm now going to try and find my figure of the number of ratepayers that is. That's 7,941 ratepayers that are paying $25 per ratepayer each every year. So that was the budget that was allowed. Now, the actual that's shown, if we look at the detailed statement in the agenda, is excuse me, only for 6,766 ratepayers. So I'm not sure whether the council made a projection through to the end of the year and maybe there'll be another 1,200 people in Darfield by then. I'm not sure. Not just Darfield, it's a bigger area of Malvern, not 5,000 square kilometres, of course. It's just working out because that causes us potentially a $30,000 shortfall in our budget that we have at the moment. So we need to just work out how that one is. And the other one, and then I'll let Steve respond, is that the council in the original budget, they'd got 110,108 for support, which is over half of our initial revenue. But if I gross it up on the monthly figure that's presented in the financial reports, that comes up at 160,920. That's 50,000 shortfall. So we're actually looking at the 89,000 you'll see in the red and white numbers on the right hand side, comes down from 89 to 9,837. So we've taken another 80,000 out. And that's that's not even of concern. That's just not going to happen. Sorry, I shouldn't have been that definite about it. That's something we can't see happen, is that fund eroding by two reasons. One is we've not planned our number of ratepayers correctly, and two, the council putting up their charge by over 50%. So thanks.
Okay, so at this stage, we've moved your report, etc. At this stage, Sarah, you've taken all that in, no doubt, but do you want to make a comment now, or do you want to sort of leave it until later while you can digest what has been said here? Sorry, yeah. Well, if you're ready now, by all means. Yeah, we'll do it while it's all fresh in everybody's mind.
And just so everybody's aware, I did send these questions
Yeah, I
to
know.
council at about 11:30 this morning. So
She can answer.
I apologise for the lateness. But it was due to, we only get the financial reports when they come in the agenda, and I was very consumed in conference last week as well. So I apologise to everybody for that, but yeah, if you could help at all, that'd be great.
Let you could go if you do. Right. Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So firstly, for those who don't know me, my name's Sarah O'Connor. I am a finance business partner at council. I've been here about 18 months now, so I'm still learning the ropes too. So I'm happy to take you through what I know of these questions. What I don't have answers for, I will certainly take away and get back to you for the next meeting. One of the reasons for me being here today is to listen to you all and understand what it is you need from us in finance. And if you're not getting, and I'm getting a bit of a sense here that you're not getting.
Excuse me a minute, Sarah. We don't seem to be getting your wavelength through here.
Yeah, can you just bring it a bit closer to you?
You got this closer? Okay. All right. Do you want to start again, or no? You're all good. Okay. So what we'd really love, and what I would really love to fulfill my role, is to better understand from you what it is you need from us to feel that the numbers are more robust and more transparent, because that's what we want to be. Okay. Thank you, Calvin, for your questions. We did receive them today. I think I got them through about 2 o'clock. But anyway, firstly, if I address the ratepayers question, the number of ratepayers, in the long-term plan, I refer to page 281, the number of projected ratepayers, and Ben's now left, but when we set the budget for the LTP, we obviously take a number at a period of time and project that forward. That's what Ben does. The number that was put into the LTP for 24-25 was 7,877, which is where the number comes from. And if you multiply that out by $25 per ratepayer. The other number that you refer to, the lower number, the 6766 in your email this morning, I'm not sure where that comes from. The number of ratepayers that were projected in the 23-24 annual plan was 7,900.
Yeah, can I respond? Yeah. Where I've got it from is in the financial statement, which has got a month budget for July. The month budget for the revenue from ours for the community board was 16,519. So I just divided that by 25 and I got 7,941, which is very close to the 7,877.
Okay.
So that's where I got that number from.
Right.
I got the lower number from was in the month end July, which is an actual figure, was 14,075.
Mhm.
So it may be that it's not for the whole month of July or something. That's potentially a problem.
That's correct.
So it can, if I divided that by 25, I got 6,766. So that's where I've got the number from.
Understand.
Maybe if you could help us understand why those two numbers are so different, because it, as I said, it potentially shows us a $30,000 shortfall.
Okay. Obviously, I need to speak to the revenue people, but I believe it's because the rates aren't always on a monthly basis, the way the revenue is recognised. So it's just a timing thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was. I hope it's not people are not paying their rates and that's why it's not coming in.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you,
sure
Calvin.
it's not that, guys.
John?
Yeah.
John, a question?
I'm just unclear, and this is no criticism or not delving into the operational, but my summation is that maybe the data isn't collected and presented in these reports in real time, so that obviously people pay their rates quarterly and in between. And my question is, if you can answer it today, does the actual expenditure as at the 31st of July represent all those people that have paid their rates during that period, July, or is it a guesstimate in a nice way?
So the revenue is what has been collected for the month of July. The expenditure is due to the Malvern Community Board, so it's not directly related to the rate. That gets smoothed out over a whole year period.
So the $25 targeted rate, is that prorated, and the amount shown in the revenue for July, is that a prorated amount of the $25 targeted rate that's been paid in July?
That is the actual. So it's not prorated. So that's what I'm saying. You have a timing difference. So if everyone pays their rates over the full 12 months, then you get to the full budget.
Steve, you want to make a comment?
Yes, at the risk of delving into a financial conversation, I'm not a financial person, but I think the basis of Calvin's really good question today was, have we underestimated the number of residents? And I think the answer you've got, Calvin, is that no, we haven't, and that the number is a reflection of the revenue received rather than a miscalculation of residents or ratepayers. So hopefully that clarifies that point for you.
Yes, thank you, Steve. That's a really good answer to it. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was what I was really concerned about. It was a problem with the number of ratepayers. Yeah, thank you.
Is there any other comments, Calvin, that you wish Sarah to go? Because what I'm going to ask, that Sarah is I'm going to take the financial statement along with this as well, so that if you wish to retire, you may.
Okay.
Okay, so Calvin, is there any other
Yeah,
questions?
there was just the other key question, which was the one about why the support seems to be 110 and then it's gone up to 160. Excuse me, because it's between the two numbers.
So the support charges too, they're not fixed. Support charges will fluctuate during the year according to the costs that are spent within the council. So during the year they'll go up and down as well. You'll see some phasing going on.
If I may, this might be the part of the question that we bring back in the detail for the September meeting, if you're comfortable with that, Calvin.
Yeah, that's fine. That sounds good. Yeah, that's all.
All right, at that stage then, we'll just adjourn this piece and I'll put that motion that we accept Calvin's report along with the answers that have been given. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, Carrie. Now, if
May I ask a question?
Sorry.
May I ask a question? Yeah. Would you like me to take you through the changes from the prior report? Would you like me to take you through what the expenses are for July? If you'd like any more information.
well, is there any explanations there of what has changed?
For the year end report or the July report?
Calvin, it's more your line.
Yeah, I've been through them literally line by line, like you
okay,
would with a
fine.
long-term plan.
Yep.
And I've been through them line by line. There has been some transfers around, which was requested because they were in the wrong place.
Yep.
And it's quite clear where everything is coming from in July. I'm talking about the current year we're in. Apart from the questions I've got.
Okay.
So I don't think at this stage, if the other board members are happy, I don't think we need to actually start burrowing into those yet. Although I reserve my decision for next month. September will probably give us a lot of answers that may help us in the future. But everything seems quite straightforward at the moment, apart from the things I've already highlighted. So
Okay,
I
if
would-
that's the case, somebody prepared to move the statement of the financial performance. John, seconder, Phil. Now, is there any further discussion on it before I put the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye on the statements as presented to us.
Aye.
Against? Carried, thank you. Sarah, could I thank you on behalf of the board? John, did you want to say
Yeah,
something
sorry.
prior to?
Just before, Steve, I really appreciate the offer, but I just want to be clear that the service charge, that's what the council charges, according to my calculation, is on a $25 targeted rate, the council takes $14 of that. And that seems to be an extraordinarily high service charge for a small community board. And I know there's purely up to the council as to make these decisions, but what I would like would be clarity on 0.41% of X doesn't really seem to help me very much. That I realise there's a whole lot of services, and I can understand that you would average them out over the year, and I don't expect every single one, but there should be a justification. Which you're clear on this. Sorry, Steve, that you'd agree with that.
Steve?
Yeah, look, thank you. I think the benefit of the pre-reading of the material is we got a sense of the questions that you're raising. I appreciate, Calvin, your questions too. That's given us and the staff some real clarity about the level of reporting that you're looking for at the next meeting. So I hope that we can take your proposed actions from your report too, John, and we'll bring that update back.
Yes, we will. We'll break it down for you as to what it's made up of.
Thank you, Sarah. On behalf of the board, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
We'll now move on to our reports further. Phil, your report is tabled. Do you wish to make any comments to it? You want to move that at this stage and then you can comment on it?
Yeah, I'll move my report.
Thank you. Second up. Calvin, the floor is yours, Phil.
No, pretty normal sort of report for me, short and sharp. I just want to comment a wee bit on the handing back of the hall at Hororata. It was an incredibly interesting group of people, and there's been a lot of passion put into that hall, and to get it back is actually a huge success. And it's probably a platform moving forward for other halls that are in this, going to come into the same situation. One thing that behind that bit of background that Hororata is that after the earthquake, when we lost all our everything, pub, church and everything else, it took a good group of old school local people to create a trust and to rebuild their community. And it's been the benefit of having that trust has helped with the process of getting that hall back. And I don't think without the input and the money that trust has put into it. So the only disappointment of the whole problem was the incredible lack of or the waste of money going down the path of these new community centre we were proposed to have and was going to be built by council. And all it's really done is taken a huge lump of money out of that trust that didn't need to be spent. And so the foresight would have been to actually cut and run way back in day one and go it alone like we have. And the other disappointment was the fact that we didn't have a member of council at that celebration. I know there'd been an official handover the week before with councillors and the deputy mayor, but it would have been nice to see somebody there at that occasion. Yeah, no, that's basically all.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Any comments on Phil's report? If not, I will put it. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. John Berry, your report, please, as tabled. Any comments?
Look,
You will move.
I'll move that it be.
Seconder. John? Phil? Right, thank you. Carry on.
I'll speak to it, and I must apologise to the board for misleading them earlier, that it wasn't only Bruce that took all the passion. So I think the important thing is community boards are the voice of the people. They were put in by Parliament to give people in the local area a voice, and as has been made clear, Malvern is 5,000 square kilometres and about 70% of the Selwyn area, and the community board is there to work with the community and bring them a voice. On page 117, I was going to move the motion, but we've already looked at that Steve's going to investigate and the council's going to report back with the finance team on the service charge. And I think that's a good way of clarifying the way further. And the other thing too that is clear in the report, which is available on the internet, is that again with the climate survey, the report from, I better not mention the name, in my view, has methodological flaws in that fine, there may be a margin of error of such and such, but as Member Shan pointed out, Selwyn, in my view, is very centred around Rolleston, Lincoln, Prebbleton, and the communities of interest there, from my limited view as an outsider, identify with Christchurch more than Selwyn. And the real challenge I see for the board is to say, well, we've got this large area of Malvern. How do we make sure that the voice of the people of Malvern is heard? And I think it probably extends into Ellesmere in some regards as well. And then on page 118, there's the issue of the fact that a report done for the Community Board's Executive of Local Government New Zealand identified that for a community board to function effectively, it needs to be given some responsibilities. Parliament was clear when it passed the legislation that there are responsibilities there, and I acknowledge that the Chief Executive has initiated a process and will be having a meeting in September where the council has put forward what they consider, and I would like to at this stage, if I may, Mr. Chair, maybe after this, move that this be tabled as a discussion document starting point. So we've got the Chief Executive and the Council's view, and I believe that we now have an opportunity to put our view and enter constructive discussions in good faith. And
I just comment there, John, what I could do with that one is to attach it as an addendum to our Chief Executive's report.
thank you, Mr. Chair, that would be very good.
No.
And then getting out and about, that, as I said, because I was cut out of the passion, I was heartened, shall we say, by the fact that yesterday I got an invitation to go down and speak to the Selwyn Ratepayers Association at their meeting in Lincoln. And there was myself, a councillor who I won't name, out of privacy reasons, and then one of the Environment Canterbury members. And there were about 30 people there. And I think that ties in pretty well, because one of the issues is it's very difficult to get people motivated. We can do our surveys, we can advertise them, but people are slack in trying to come forward. But when the people are there, it's really a matter, and what I took from it, and also it was reinforced with the theme of the Community Board Conference of localism, that it is the people on the ground that pay the rates, support the council, and as I said earlier, not interfering in council's operational decision, because it is a challenge in my view. How do you get equity in looking after a metropolitan centre and a large rural area but we have excellent staff and a wonderful leadership team at the council, and I'm sure that these challenges will be overcome as we move forward. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Any discussion on John's report? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Move on now to Councillor Mugford, your verbal report.
We had the AGM for the Sister Cities meeting the other night, and a new committee was formed. As far as Hororata goes, it's great to see it. I've been working on it for 8 years. I was just looking at some minutes the other day, and it's about 8 years since we started thinking of something that was going to be impossible to do. And with a lot of goodwill from the community and councillors, it's a really good outcome. And I can see that we should be looking maybe at other facilities in the same light in the future. But the other one is I'm sitting on Wednesday on the Heritage Fund, of which we've managed to get, it was 50,000 and we've got up to 150,000, and we've got applications to the value of 312,000. So it's quite a popular fund. The other one is, it was great to be on the panel for Castle Hill Reserve. As I said before, that was a really good, it was done very well with the community. Anything I've had to do with the community since, they're really impressed with the way it was done. So we do get it right sometimes. So that's my report. I'd like to move.
Thank you, Bob. Would you like to move your verbal report? Seconder for Bob's report, Kelvin. It's open for discussion. If not, I will put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Now, page 128 is the 121 is the Chief Executive's report. I will so move that. Is there a seconder? Thank you, John. Steve, do you want to make any comment? And part of that report, I will take as a separate motion that what we discussed earlier on the delegations, that be annexed to the Chief Executive, which then will allow us to discuss that at our meeting with her on the 17th of September. Okay, Steve, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, it's probably not my place to talk to Sharon's report directly, but certainly what I'd like to acknowledge is the passion and the opportunity to be here tonight. So thank you for sharing your stories. I was at the Local Government New Zealand conference as well and heard the similar messages about the power of local. And so thank you to the members tonight for sharing the stories and to having that passion for representing your community. Certainly, I know that we've got the representation review at the moment, and your feedback and the feedback of all the community is well sought. And I know that the councillors around the table will be listening. So thank you for that. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Steve, could I just ask, which I'm not aware of, I knew that we were up for awards. Did we actually win any? Sorry?
We came second.
Oh, did we? Well, I suppose at least we got mentioned. So I suppose that's something.
I think everyone who didn't win came second.
Sorry? What'd you say?
Everyone who didn't win came second. I was being polite.
Okay, that answers the question. All right. So I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
With the addendum to it. Carried. Thank you. Now we move on to discretionary. Sorry.
Can I just make the comment to be balanced that I think that the report, especially given Mr. Frizzle's presentation at the earlier community board meeting of July, and the follow-up is really helpful, and I really appreciated that, and I see that as a step in the right direction.
Thank you, John. Right now, as you move on to your next items on the agenda, and that is the discretionary funds application. Now, I trust they've all got one of these, have they, Charlotte? Pardon? Okay, so the requests are, what do you want to say? Oh, Kelvin,
Yeah, could I just clarify something? These are requests that have come into the overall discretionary fund now, nothing
from the Malvern ward.
but from the Malvern ward.
And we have the opportunity to say to our councillors that we either agree or we recommend.
Yeah, okay, no,
Point of order. Can I move that we go into confidential session?
Okay, that would mean that we would have to exclude our visitors at this stage.
I'll change that then to say, does the board think this should be discussed in confidential session?
Well, the only thing I would say at this stage, we have recommendations of which, yeah, I think the general feeling is if our public are quite happy about that, we will go into. Just before you leave, thank you for coming and thank you for listening to us.
I was just going to suggest that we move this to the end so that if they
Well,
want
we
to
are
say
at the end.
we haven't gotten into other business.
Mr. Chair, one of the people was going to speak about a night market. I know it should have come earlier, but I'm sorry about it.
Okay, well, what we'll do then, just sit down with him, and if you want to do that now, we will take it now. We're getting time problems. That's what it amounts to at this stage. So could you take a seat and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Liesl Null. I'm local to Darfield. I just had a poll on Facebook regarding how we can get some more feed to Darfield and get something exciting going for Darfield. And the suggestion came up for a night market to be held once a month on a Friday night. We get some food stalls out. I actually have, you can just pass these on. It's the poll from Facebook. There was over 150 likes on the page. Everyone was raving about it. There's a couple of stall holders that came up and said, yes, we are interested. Yes, how do I get involved? Can we get it set, get it going? People are excited for this for summer. We don't have a Santa parade or any of the other fun things that the other small towns have. So we'd like a night market where we can get the locals the lady from the honey store down the road, the guy that sells his eggs, everyone out, the local nurseries. There's people that have nurseries in their backyards. We've got to get these people out and support the small businesses before the town gets too big and there's no space for them, no place for them to showcase what they have to offer.
Can I just ask a question? In relation to the Saturday market and the Friday night market, is there a overlap, or do you think that there's room for the Saturday market and the new Friday night market targeting perhaps the same or different people? I'm just concerned about whether there's a competition between the two and whether we should look at saying, let's have one market, albeit maybe a Saturday morning, Friday night session.
I think there's room for both. The Saturday morning market caters at the moment for about 3 stall holders. There's no food trucks coming. There's no main attraction. I think the main attraction for that market currently is the guy that sells the eggs. So a Friday night market, if you do it a one-off a month, choose the first Friday of the month and you go with that, you'll be able to attract a larger variety of people and a larger variety of stallholders, and people will come through and come see it. If you have a station where someone could do some busking or music, get it alive, get the people going and moving. Because the venue is critical to Darfield. So that is my problem, is a venue. I have no idea how to start this or how to do this. I just know that this is something that the community is desperately seeking. So if you could advise me where to start.
Could I suggest that we will support you in principle, And I think the thing is at our next meeting or prior to that, if we can have a meeting with you, or
Yeah.
some of us can meet with you to work out the priorities, where we might be able to hold it, when we might be able to hold it, we can then discuss it at our next board meeting. Because at this stage, I believe we haven't got enough detail here. And I think just quickly looking through it, but I think then at that stage, it will give us an opportunity. If we agree to it in principle, that doesn't mean we're going to support it or not support it, but we agree to it in principle. If you're happy with that,
Yes.
at least we've got it on the books, if you like.
Yes, that's
Are you
correct.
happy?
Yes.
How does the board feel about that? Is somebody prepared to move that we agree it in principle, or do you want to make a comment prior to, Phil?
I'm just going to make a comment. Yeah, I think that it has to be only once a month. My wife's done markets for 10 years, and yeah, it won't sustain itself weekly or anything like that. And I do think it is needed. The trouble with all these smaller markets is, yeah, if you try and push it too hard, it just slowly dies off. So, yeah.
Any other comment, Calvin?
Yeah, we've got what is now a very successful market in
West Melton.
West Melton. It's based at the community centre, so we're really lucky we've got that space that's got space around it to do it. It is once a month, totally agree with Phil. And we only do it for 9 months a year. So we don't have to rely so heavily on the weather. The first one's on 1st September, Father's Day, awesome. So I personally fully support you, and we'll do all we can to give you help and advice. And I think some of your issues, depending on the location, is potentially around insurance, etc.
Yeah.
Potentially if you're using council facilities. But yeah, if we can all work.
Okay,
together,
if
I'm up
there's
for
no
that.
disagreement on that and that we support it in principle, I'm prepared to put that motion. Is somebody prepared to move that? John, seconder, Sian?
Can
It's
I
open
just-
for discussion. Sian?
Can I just ask, Mr. Chair, what you would require from Liesl, in regards to information? Would you require a business plan?
What I'm suggesting at this stage, that we've got other meetings coming up here with the board. If we can work in where they can come and present something to us and bring us right up to date so that we can make a decision at our next meeting. I'm sure we'll be able to fit round some of the cycles when we're here. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So that you can address us personally. That would
Just
be
one-
part of it.
One
Sharon?
final comment is that I adminned the Darfield community page for some years.
Yes.
Food seems to be the thing that a lot of the newcomers are missing about coming out here. They're used to vendors being available in the city, coming out here, and it's very limited. So I think that this would bring a lot of joy to a lot of our newcomers, especially into the area.
Well, I think this is something perhaps, Sian, at your convenience, even if you talk personally to our guest, and if there's something that you can put on your Facebook page, I'm more than happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, at this stage,
If you would allow me, Chairman.
are you anything?
A motion has been, well, a suggestion has been put to the meeting to move into public excluded on the
Correct.
basis of discussions around the funding applications. All the information has been provided in public, and none of the discussions I think you're going to have would warrant the discussion to be put into public excluded. So I just providing my advice that I think you can have this in public. And you are recommending to council, so you're not making the final decision. You're just providing some strong guidance.
And adding to that, Steve, in the past, for all the time I've been on the board, it has been done in public.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
just as a point of clarification, I'm unsure as to what I'd like to avoid would be recommending more than we've actually got amounts to recommend.
But as I understand.
So the money's there.
Yeah, but it gives you the profiles of each person as part of your agenda.
Page 126.
It would be page 126, is it?
Yeah.
I'd like to,
Yeah. 126.
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chair, on that one. Looking at what this person has raised so far in their own funding, it's $250 from fundraising. I wonder if we match that. Oh, we recommend a match for that as opposed to the $500 that's been suggested.
That we recommend.
I would like to suggest that the board makes a recommendation that the council or the funding committee matches the amount that this person has already personally fundraised, which is $250.
$250 at the present time. If he raises any more, we're not going to match it.
Well, at the time of the application.
Correct. Okay, that's fine.
And I would like to say that, in my personal view, I think that somebody shouldn't be granted more than they've raised as a general guiding principle. And
okay, the motion is.
if you're going to move it, or can I?
No,
Yeah. I have an issue personally looking at educational trips. I know their value, but I just think that they're now that common these days. And I'm just worried about the precedent effect that obviously this isn't the only student in my mind that's going on the trip. So if we grant this and then we get 15 other students making an application, we may not be bound to deliver, but I feel uncomfortable saying yes to this. I would like to see that if it's a school trip, and as this is a new system, that all the applications come in at one time so that we can consider them in totality rather than piecemeal.
All I'm saying is at the stage, he's got projected funds here at the present time the total cost, but he doesn't say at this stage what he's actually done himself.
No, he does, Mr.
Pardon?
Chair. That's project funds. So
Yeah,
those
but
those
have
are the
they
pro-
been completed?
they're the projects that he's done to raise money
Oh,
to date.
right,
So
yeah,
he
they
has
have completed.
he's personally raised
Okay,
$1,410.
So he first well, I've been talking with it to myself.
500.
Right, so carry on, John.
Yeah, I'd recommend 500.
Okay, is there a second to that? Bob, councillor Mugford. It's open for discussion. The recommendation is that we grant this particular person $500 we recommend to the discretionary fund $500. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Now, the second one, the next one is again, this one here, the Malvern Community Board grant 1,049 from Malvern Community Board discretionary fund to assist parents of students from Darfield High School to organise a fundraising SEAC event. Now, as I understand, a Kaylee, well, you can tell I'm not Irish. All right. What I'm saying is currently that doesn't come under the discretion of our fund. So my recommendation would be that no, we don't support that. However, I'll take guidance. John?
I'm of the mindset that this is fundraising for something for the school. Now, from what I understand, the school doesn't receive a lot of funding from the Ministry of Education. So I just wanted to make mention of that just for information.
As I understand it, though, from what I've read here, this is to support a project. If they're going to hire something, they want us to pay the initial expenses, which comes to, according to them, $1,410. All I'm saying is it is to raise money. So it doesn't fall the way they've got it into the criteria that we currently operate. Councillor Mugford, do you want to make a comment? But under the circumstances, I will not recommend it. But however, I'll be overgoverned by the board.
I'll second it.
Sorry?
I'll second your recommendation.
Yeah, that we don't. It's not currently falls within the regulations. Bob, yeah. Okay. That's my recommendation. I've moved it. John has seconded it. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye. Any abstentions? Anybody against? Right, carried. The next one, a request for a grant Darfield High School trip to Japan. Again, that starts on page 135. No, it doesn't. Start from 137, doesn't it? There.
No, 135. You're right.
Yeah, 135 through. And if you look at the financial statements on 138, you'll find the total cost of this is $82,890. We are taking a group of 13 students to Japan as part of their Japanese studies. Any discussion?
Yeah,
John?
again, and I may have overlooked it, but I don't have a recollection of seeing what now that they've centralised the funding, what the criteria is in relation to the granting of funding, and I definitely have no recollection of having had any input into that. And I just find it difficult to make a valid decision on the ad hoc information, and that's where I get to, because educational trips are all very good, but these days several schools are doing it. Maybe there are several educational trips in schools, and as we've seen, there's trips to Italy and trips to France. And while these are very, very good, I just wonder about whether the discretionary fund from the Malvern Community Board, and more importantly, although it's not my business, but that doesn't stop me, the discretionary fund that the council has got, I'm trying to come to grips with some clear guidelines that can be applied so that it's taking out any bias or prejudice that I have.
But I think, Councillor Mugford, that discretionary fund is operating the same as what it has in the past. That's at this stage. You've got a bulk figure. Our bulk figure, as I understand, is about approximately 18,000. That's based on per head of population. Rolleston or the ward will have a certain figure. Springs have got a certain figure. Ellesmere has got a certain figure. Now, it's all based on population. Ours has come down from what we've had previously. We normally worked on about 25,000. Currently now it's 18,000, but that's the discretion.
Can I just correct you on that, Bruce? It was 15.
I beg your pardon then.
Yeah.
I
15.
beg your pardon.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
It wasn't that large.
All right. I'm going back too many years. Sian.
Can we also take into consideration that this is a school trip
Correct.
to connect with sister schools, and that this board has a delegation to a sister city
Yep.
in Japan where we are asked to engage? I don't think that would look very good if we didn't recommend that the funding was provided for this trip. That's all I have to say.
And I think that's fair comment, but the 13 students would have to be members of the Malvern ward, or their families would have to be members of the Malvern ward to qualify.
They're Darfield High School students, so they absolutely would be.
Okay, well, but I mean, that's something we would have to validate to
This
make
is a-
sure that we are on safe ground.
I mean, this.
No,
an
but they've got to
application
live
from
in the Malvern
Darfield High
ward. Just
School.
because they attend the Darfield High School doesn't necessarily say that they're in the Malvern ward.
Understood, yeah.
Okay, so that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, just,
Bob,
historically, it's always been 500 for an individual
correct,
and 1,500.
and 1,500 for a team.
But at the board's discretion.
Yes,
And if they thought there was circumstances that were more or less, the board has that. And I still don't see the difference in that as I see it until new paperwork comes out.
Correct.
Which will be, I think it's the 14th of next month or something like that.
Correct.
The new policies will be out. So.
so what I'm asking is somebody prepared to move that the board recommends $1,500 be granted to the Darfield High School trip to Japan.
I move that.
Thank you, Sian. Second of Phil.
Based
All in
on
favour of that
commitment.
recommendation?
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, the last one, to Maggie McConchie, who is obviously wants to travel to Scotland to go take part in the tournament over there. She's asking for a grant, or being recommended to a grant of $500, which would be in line with current proposal. Is there a mover and seconder? Thanks, Phil. Seconder? Kelvin. It's open for discussion. The recommendation is, I've actually heard this person play, tremendous. I mean, and I know that they do quite a lot of, what do you call it? Basking to raise funds, etc. So I'm not sure just how much they've raised at the present time. Yeah. Okay, so the recommendation, Jordan,
that was going to be my question. How much have they raised, given their decision in the first one?
Ticketing fees,
Oh.
that's the cost.
Have they got a dollar figure?
Total funds available, no. Oh, seeking, that's the sponsorship there. The total cost is just on 11,000. They're seeking sponsorship of something like from 10 gold sponsors of 1,600, whether that's been achieved yet or not. The total cost of the pretend there, different amount requested. There's a different, they've obviously raised it there, I would suggest, Steve, haven't they?
They've raised 4,510.
Yep, that's
which is
right,
the
exactly.
Less total funds.
So
available.
that's how much they've done so far. Okay, so I'll put the recommendation that we grant or we recommend $500 to this person. All in favour? Against, carried. Right, so according to my agenda, we have covered everything. And at this stage, it's 6 o'clock. Sian?
Mr. Chair, just one thing in regards to Tussock Square and the Japanese garden. I would like to request an update from the council in regards to where that's at. So we were advised on the 27th of February last year that all that was remaining was some seating, planting, and also the lantern. And since then, the only correspondence we've really had was in relation to the tree planting ceremony. So I'd like to request an action that the council provides us an update of where things are at, including a breakdown of costs to date, please, if that's okay.
I'm happy to receive that. Seconder, John? Thank you, Sian, for that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Is there anything further? Could I thank you, board, for the way that we've got through a pretty heavy agenda today. I do appreciate that. I appreciate your cooperation. There's no doubt about that. Felix, my son, I trust that you've enjoyed it. I know you've been put